Hey everybody, Mark Johnson here, founder and creative director of Able Abe Studios, back again with another episode of It's Go Time, episode number 29. In today's episode, I share with you my preparation for writing my next book. Like I said, in today's episode, I'm sharing with you my preparation in writing my next book. Just kind of give you a little bit of background very quickly. Last year, I entered my first writing contest. After kind of really a process of getting back involved with writing through, getting some contributing writing pieces for Video Maker magazine, I kind of really got the feeling back to getting back to writing. And it was kind of a little bit of a process. I did a couple stories for the magazine, and then through those stories, it kind of led me to a point where I felt I should get back to screenwriting. And I'd written a few feature-length screenplays, and it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was a great thing. But I had never written a book, and so I wanted to kind of see what that was like. And we're talking novella, so we're not talking a thick-ass book. We're talking maybe a brief little novel. Maybe a little. I don't know if it's a little longer or shorter than a short story, but it's about 20,000 words. So I entered the contest, with no real expectations if I was going to win or not, but just kind of see how I would do by building a process to kind of do that. And so I'll just kind of share you briefly today what that process developed, because since then I've written another book, which is kind of the part 2 of that first book, and then I also want a part 3 in this year. I want to kind of finish the whole trilogy, if you want to say, this year. So that's the process that I'll share with you today. So thanks for tuning in, and without further ado, let's get started. So my first step in kind of developing a book, or developing a story, is I let that idea marinate. I kind of come up with things that I want to write about, stories, kind of that I want to be able to tell. I think I'm at a point where I want to tell stories that kind of have a moral kind of a tale in it, in the sense that you can learn something from it, whether or not it's by watching the character do something and then being able to do it on your own, or just kind of unveiling maybe some of the things that you'll find when you try to do certain things. And so that's kind of the stories I would like to be able to tell. And obviously, there's many different ways you can go about that, but the way I usually go is just kind of get that little faint idea in my head and kind of let it marinate. I call it marinate because what do you do when you marinate, a piece of meat, a steak or a piece of chicken? You put the sauces on it and you let it sit. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I got all the things that I want to put in there, the good, the bad, the deceptions, those kind of things that are going to make the story interesting. I want to put that in there. So I don't necessarily take notes at that point. I kind of really just kind of let the idea sit, and I kind of give myself a date when I want to start writing the next step. The next step is to develop a sensible outline. And developing a sensible outline, basically what I'm saying is that just make it sensible enough that it drives the story, it develops the character, it makes sense. You can start at the beginning and you're compelled to go all the way to the end. That's kind of what I want to create. I want to create stories that people can't put down, or they can't not stop watching. So at that point, I develop a sensible outline that makes sense, that has the tension, that develops the story, that develops the character. I want a character that by the end of the story is a different person than that person was, at the beginning. So that's kind of how I develop the outline. The next step is to write the rough shit. When I talk about writing the rough shit, I mean getting it out. I call it the rough shit because it's as rough as possibly can be. It's me just getting out the ideas onto paper. I use a spiral notebook. Usually if I'm writing a big story, a long story, even a feature, I'll use a whole notebook. That's a technique that I learned from, Quentin Tarantino. That's what he does. I've watched a lot of his interviews and read a lot of his articles, and that's what he does. So, when I was early on and started this writing thing, years ago, like back when I was in school, that's where I started, so I'll take a fresh notebook and just kind of start the story there. As I'm going, I'll mark off either the chapters or the scenes on my outline, and day by day, I take it day by day. The part of writing the rough shit for me takes about a month, because I'm trying to break it down, like how they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How you build a wall? one brick at a time. So I'll take a month to do that. Just write every single day, write another chapter, write another scene. And I'll take about a month to do that. So my next step in the process, after writing the rough shit, got it all in your notebook, I'm ready to retype it or rewrite it, which is for me another month kind of a thing. You know, I'm not a quick typer, or a speedy typer, but it's just a process that I've done. You know, I don't dislike it, I don't hate it. It's just the way it is. You know, I'm sure if I could write it and someone can read it and retype it for me, then that's cool. Then I'll let them do that. But I'm not at that point yet, so we'll work towards it. But I like being in the process. You know, doing that again gives me another chance to, you know, think about the story. I don't really do any edits when I'm doing the rough shit. You know, I don't really, you know, do any edits. I just kind of get everything out. When I'm retyping it, there is some times where I do edit some things because I think this sounds better, you know, and I've had a lot of time to kind of develop the story a little bit more, and I've sat with it, I've sat with the characters and, you know, developed the characters so I know, oh, this might make more sense. So when I'm retyping it, maybe I do some editing, not too much though, because, you know, once it's all rewritten and it's, you know, a printed out document, that's when I start to do the editing, because now it's complete in a sense. And now I can read, which is actually the next step. The next step is to edit and just kind of get the good edits in, part, you know, grammar, part, you know, punctuation, but more or less I want to be able to get edits that are on the story. Is the story good? Is it compelling? Is it causing you to, oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And, you know, keep you riveted. You know, I want that kind of type of story, you know, and so that's what I do at that part. From there, I get my final edits in. You know, I want to get to a point where I have a final product, you know, punctuation, grammar, all that's tip top, you know, as much as possible. I'm not the greatest, you know, definitely spell check. It's definitely, that's tight, but maybe there's some things that slip, comma, you know, that kind of thing. Dialogue maybe gets a little bit out of hand, but, you know, that's all stuff that's fixable. If the story's tight and it's compelling, you know, then you got something to go. So that's kind of what I want to do for the first or the final edits. I think when I did my first project, I really just had to sit with it. I know there was a deadline, but I took one extra day just to sit with it, skim through it to kind of make sure it felt good, and then I sent it off. You know, I know it needed to be there at a certain time, a certain day, and it was going to New York, so I need to have time for it to kind of get there. So I took at least one extra day to kind of do that, and then sent it off, and I felt good. You know, it almost didn't make it, but I felt good in doing that. That was something that I would do again. So that is the process of what I prepare to do for writing this next book. And like I said, this is actually the third book in a three-part story. You know, the contest had their own regulations and stuff like that. There's always things I couldn't do, and, you know, after getting to the end and feeling good about it, I was like, I can do this again. This story needs a little bit more. And so that's when I was like, okay, let's do at least 2 more and work with this process. So it takes, in all, if I'm working as I like to work, I can write a book in about 3 months. You know, at least a part where it's like printed out and edited. And I have a lot of things in process right now, so that's kind of why I don't really have necessarily anything like that. Oh, I got the book, you know, I have the book. I don't really have that, but I'm definitely working towards it, and I definitely will get there. It's just kind of a matter of time. And like I said early on in the video, is that what I've learned with this writing thing is that it's just, it takes time and it's a process. You know, you can't really rush it. So that's just kind of the process that I've used. Hopefully it can be useful to you in your writing work. So yeah, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, definitely subscribe. And if you want to share with me maybe some of the things that you do in your own writing process, leave those in the description box below. As well as maybe if some of the steps that I'm using could work for you, definitely leave that conversation or the comment box below. Maybe we can start a conversation, kind of, you know, help each other out in this writing thing. Outside of that, I hope your journey is as fun as mine, because I'm having a good time right now. I'll tell you that. I'm having a good time. So I definitely want to keep this going. So, like we always do at this time, have a blessed day. See you on the flip side. Let's go.